Have you ever looked at a map of your own home? I mean, really looked at it. Not just a quick glance at the fire escape plan on the back of the hotel door, but a detailed architectural blueprint. I did, for the first time last month. My apartment building is a pre-war relic, full of charming quirks, and as I would discover, unsettling secrets. I was planning a minor renovation, just knocking down a non-structural wall to open up the living space. For that, I needed the original floor plans, which I managed to get from the city archives after a bit of bureaucratic hassle. I spread the brittle, yellowed paper out on my dining table. There it was, apartment 4B, my home. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. All the lines and measurements seemed correct. But as I traced the perimeter with my finger, a cold knot formed in my stomach. According to the blueprint, the wall behind my bedroom closet should have been the exterior wall of the building. But I knew for a fact it wasn't. There was a small, dusty storage closet there, one I barely used. It was deep, much deeper than it should have been. The blueprint, however, showed nothing. Just a solid, thick line indicating the end of the building. At first, I dismissed it. A mistake. A revision made after the original plans were filed. Buildings this old are full of such discrepancies. But the thought was a splinter in my mind, nagging at me. The next day, I took a tape measure to the closet. It was nearly 7 feet deep. I measured the exterior of the building from the street level as best I could, counting windows and estimating distances. The numbers didn't add up. There was a dead space, a void in the building's geometry that perfectly matched the dimensions of my strange little closet. A room that, according to the official record, did not exist. My curiosity turned into a quiet obsession. I started spending my evenings not planning my renovation, but studying my apartment. I'd tap on the walls, listening for changes in density. The back wall of that closet had a strange, hollow thud to it, different from the solid brick elsewhere. It felt wrong. One night, armed with a flashlight, I cleared out all the old boxes and junk I'd stored in there. The air was stale, thick with the smell of old plaster and something else, something faintly sweet and decaying. The back wall was made of old, crumbling plaster over what looked like brick. But in the dim light, I noticed something I'd never seen before. A faint, almost imperceptible outline. It was the shape of a door, long since plastered over. There was no knob, no hinges, just the ghostly silhouette of a doorway where one should not be. A wave of dread, cold and heavy, washed over me. This wasn't just a closet. It was a sealed entrance. But to what? I tried to find other blueprints, revised plans, anything. I spoke to the building superintendent, an old man named Sal, who had worked there for 40 years. He just shrugged. Old building, he'd said, full of secrets. He mentioned that my apartment, 4B, had a reputation. People didn't stay long. They'd complain of strange drafts, noises in the walls, a persistent feeling of being watched. He'd always dismissed it as old pipes and the wind. But as he told me this, he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. The feeling of being watched intensified. I'd be sitting in my living room and get the sudden, prickling sensation that someone was standing just out of my line of sight. I started hearing faint whispers, like conversations happening in the next room, but there was no next room. At least, not one that was supposed to be there. The sounds seemed to emanate from the closet, from beyond that plastered-over door. The dread was no longer quiet. It was a constant, low hum in the back of my mind. My home, my sanctuary, felt alien and menacing. I knew I had to see what was behind that wall. Rational thought had long since fled. I bought a crowbar and a sledgehammer. One Saturday morning, with my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, I started. The plaster crumbled easily, falling away in dusty chunks to reveal the brick beneath. The mortar was old and soft. I wedged the crowbar between the bricks and pushed. One came loose, then another. It was slow, grueling work. The sweet, decaying smell grew stronger with every brick I removed. After a few hours, I had made a hole big enough to shine my flashlight through. I peered into the darkness, my breath catching in my throat. It was a room, small, windowless, and completely bare. The walls were stained with dark, blotchy patches of what looked like old mold. The floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, and in the center of the room there was a single wooden chair, just sitting there, facing the wall, as if waiting for someone. Why was it there? Who had sealed this room, and why? The sight was so simple, yet so deeply unsettling. It felt like a stage, set for a play I couldn't comprehend. I widened the hole, my hands shaking. I had to get in. I had to know. Squeezing through the jagged opening, I dropped into the hidden room, my feet landing in the soft dust with a muffled thud. The air was suffocatingly still. The silence was absolute, a heavy blanket that seemed to absorb all sound. I ran my flashlight along the walls. They were bare. No paintings, no shells, nothing. Just stains. I approached the chair. It was a simple, straight-backed design, dark wood polished smooth by time. As I got closer, I saw something on the floor beside it, a small, leather-bound book. A diary. My hand trembled as I picked it up. The leather was cracked and stiff. I opened it to a random page. The handwriting was elegant but frantic. The ink faded to a rusty brown. The entry was dated 1928. It was written by a woman named Elellanar. She wrote about the room. She called it her quiet place, a place where the world outside couldn't reach her. At first, the entries were peaceful. She wrote about sitting in the chair, feeling a sense of calm she couldn't find anywhere else. But as the pages turned, the tone shifted. The calm became a strange euphoria. She wrote that the room spoke to her, that the silence was full of whispers only she could hear. She became obsessed. She spent all her time in the room, neglecting her life, her family. Her final entries were terrifying. She wrote that the room wasn't empty, that something was there with her in the stillness, a presence that fed on her attention, her devotion. It had convinced her that the only way to truly be with it, to achieve the ultimate peace it promised, was to close herself in forever. The last entry was short. I am sealing the door now. At last, we will be quiet together. Forever. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I dropped the diary as if it were burning. The sweet smell in the room suddenly seemed cloying, sickening. I understood now. The drafts, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. It was Elellanar, or what was left of her. A psychic echo, an emotional stain, trapped in this forgotten space. A presence that had been waiting, patiently, in the quiet for someone to open the door again. I scrambled back towards the hole in the wall, a primal fear clawing at my throat. As I pulled myself through, I chanced one last look back into the room. In the sweeping beam of my flashlight, for just a fraction of a second, I thought I saw a faint shimmering outline of a woman sitting in the chair, her head turned towards me, a grotesque smile stretching her face. I didn't wait to confirm. I climbed back into my closet and, without a second thought, started putting the bricks back. I worked through the night, my hands raw, my body fueled by pure adrenaline and terror. I mortared the bricks back into place, frantically, sloppily. Then I replastered the wall, my work messy and uneven. It didn't matter. It just had to be sealed. I moved my heaviest furniture against the closet door, barricading it shut. I never finished the renovation. I couldn't. I sold the apartment a month later, at a loss. I didn't tell the new owners anything. What could I say? Be careful of the closet. There's a room back there that doesn't exist, and I think it's hungry. Sometimes, late at night in my new, modern, characterless apartment, I think about that room. I think about the blueprints, the empty space on the paper where a secret was hidden. I think about Elellanar, and the quiet she so desperately craved. And I wonder, if I had stayed, would the whispers have grown louder? Would I have started to find the silence as comforting as she did? I don't know. But I do know that some doors are sealed for a reason, and some quiet places are best left undisturbed. Thank you for listening.